So this week I'm showing you how I scribed 2 filler pieces either side of our new wardrobes, and I knew I'd have to do it at some point after redesigning this whole bedroom because I've got a chimney breast here, I've got some pipes in the way there and an electric socket behind here. There's nothing behind that one, but it wasn't the easiest of jobs, and I'll show you exactly how I get on. But if you've got any tips to improve for next time, then feel free to comment below. But scribing in a camper van was much easier than this. So these are what the gaps looked like before. And when we placed the wardrobes here, I made sure these spaces were symmetrical. And I did want to give it a fitted look, but to be able to remove the panels, but things don't always go to plan. So I'm just measuring the height of the wardrobe of where I want to cut down my panels. And I bought 2 of these Conti board style from B&Q for about £10. And these are high gloss ones to tie in with wardrobes. So I now need to mark where I'm going to chop the top off. So marking with a pencil briefly, and then use some masking tape so I could see my pencil line easier, and the idea was I didn't want to chip it, but you'll see how I got on with that later. And because I knew I'd have some offcuts, here's a test result of how I got on with my standard jigsaw blade. And it did chip from the top, but not the underside. So I thought, right, okay, I'll cut this for now with my upward blade, and I could reverse this, but when it comes to cutting my scribed area, I'll nip out and buy a downward blade. So I've put that to one side for a minute, and because this is a very specific tight spot, I decided to do a dummy run with a scrap piece of OSB that I had for either side, and it'd be like a template as well and just give me confidence. And you can see some screws here because I've fixed some solid pieces of wood on the other side just to stop it moving about. So now I've got some masking tape again on my template, but now the challenge was to jam this perfectly square against my wardrobe, and I jammed up loads of scrap pieces of cardboard in between the gap next to the wall, and I do that from top to bottom. And on this side there's pipe work that's protruding, and my dad recommended fixing a piece of wood behind the real thing to make it more rigid against the wall. So I've just crudely placed it there to get some depth. So now it's tight and square and I've got it where I want it. It was time to draw a line while slowly moving a compass against the wall. But I did get this one from Asda for £1, so this probably wasn't the best one. So if you've got any recommendations for future, please comment below. I did see one for £30, but I didn't want to pay for it for this one-off job. So I'm going right down to the bottom and repeated the exact same method for the opposite side as well. And now I'm using my Black & Decker jigsaw to cut along my scribed pencil line. So my first one is cut down to size, and I held the first one against the wall to check to see if there were any high spots I needed to cut down. There were a couple, but not that many. But now to cut on my real piece. And you can see some yellow masking tape on this one. And I've now clamped my OSB chipboard template straight onto the good panel. But I do regret on this first one that I didn't measure the width of my gap to just make one cut, because it had a straight line I could have utilised. But I'm drawing along it to create my real cut mark. Now these are the downward facing blades that YouTubers recommended, and I never found any difference. And this is another scrap piece that I tested with it, and you can see chips are definitely there. So I'm going for it now. I've got my panel clamped to my sawhorses, and I went slowly using that downward facing jigsaw blade. It definitely wasn't a job that I could rush. So now for the reveal, removing the masking tape. It was okay. And now I'm measuring top, middle and bottom to get my straight line. So more masking tape, and I've transferred those measurements to the panel and use something long and straight, a spirit level, to make a continuous pencil line. So now I thought, right, I've seen plenty of people do this on YouTube, create a straight line by clamping something straight onto whatever you're cutting, and with it being high gloss, it was slipping all over the place. Everything about this job was so frustrating. So I scrapped the OSB as a guide and just had to follow the pencil line alone. So I learnt from this and just made one cut for the last one. And because it was so frustrating and the temperature was unbearable, what I didn't get on film is that when I trimmed some high spots off, I trimmed it while it was upside down. Now that would have been alright in this situation if my jigsaw wasn't cutting on an angle, which annoyingly meant I definitely had to use some sort of sealant to finish it off. That's not what I wanted. And now I'm fixing some pre-drilled stud wood to the back of the panel to make it more rigid while it's jammed into place. This is exactly what my dad recommended, and it gave me the confidence just to go ahead with it. But it's almost done. I've now got my wood in position, and I also made pencil marks on the inside of the wardrobe because I'd worked out exactly where my panel was positioned. So now I'm pre-drilling a few holes. No one's going to see this. And I'm fixing the panel on the inside with screws. and I also later covered them with some white screw caps. So now it's the next day and both of the panels are screwed into place. Oh, and this panel was the one where I made that second cut to cut a straight line. So now I'm masking taping all sides before I add some sealant, but it's not my favourite stuff to work with. So when I went over it with a smoothing tool, the masking tape moved it while I was pulling it off. So I tediously removed all but one section of it, and then instead I just went for decorator's cork instead and removed the excess with either a wet finger or a damp cloth. And I was much happier with this method from applying it to the finished look. So it's been a couple of weeks since I finished this job and I am very happy with it now because the room is done and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But if you've got any tips on getting the perfect scribe, then feel free to comment below so I know for next time. And yeah, hopefully it's been useful, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more, and hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.